Guys, so we're back with Tadlock. The subject here is reproduction. And Tifa here, Fit Bully TV. If you guys watched our last episode, I literally answered 10 questions. One of the questions, Dr. Tadlock, is a guy said, when do you know your female's ready to breed? I said, it's kind of a loaded question because females carry and often pass along character. And so I said, is that a dog you want to put in 100 homes? But foundationally, there's 3 days of ovulation, and in that time frame, you want to know where her progesterone numbers are. Yep. So from where you sit from a vet standpoint, when is a female ready to breed?
So we're doing a lot on progesterones. Old school, we used to do a lot on like vaginal cytologies, and I'll still do some. But
what is a vaginal cytology, if you don't mind?
We take let's say a Q-tip, and go in the vagina a little bit, and just do a little swab, and we put it on the microscope and stain it, and we're looking at the epithelial cells. So there's going to be red blood cells because they're bleeding, right? There'll probably be a little bit of bacteria that may or may not be a problem. It's usually pretty natural. But we're looking at epithelial cells and how many nucleus or nuclei are there. Most cells are going to have one. How big are they? Do they even have nucleus anymore? If they don't, they kind of look like Frosted Flakes, the cereal. And then we're probably ready
to breed. So that used to be the old style of progesterone testing.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit. That's interesting.
Oh yeah.
And how often would you have to bring the female in to know what day she was ready to go?
I think they did it the same about like progesterones. Hey, every 2-3 days, let's check, and just we're making notes like, hey, there's 80% nucleated epithelial cells. Hey, now we're 50%. Now we're 20%. Let's breed.
So when the numbers of the nuclei diminished, that's when you would breed?
Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it.
That's one way. and like I still do some every once in a while. I'm like, why is that progesterone still saying that? What's going on here?
And what's the number when you go and do the vaginal cytology?
Like on the nucleus stuff?
Well, no, on the progesterone. So like the progesterone number's not.
It varies. I've done it every part of the cycle before. I've done it just because I'm like, hey, let's just see. Let's learn something today. What does it look like? Yeah. But a lot of times, let's say, like on the IDEX machine, you're 5 to 8, you're ovulating, and you're breeding 2 to 4 days. But really, on progesterones, we're looking, is that number doubling? That's the big thing. Everybody talks about it. Is the number going up or is it doubling? Kind of what's going on there. There's so many variables.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing a vaginal cytology, let's say the number is 12.
Wow.
Do it. Let's just see.
Yeah. See if it's a healthy situation or so she's ready to go.
And I've seen it like, hey, last time this dog never took, or maybe she hasn't taken twice. Like, all right, let's do it. And it's like, oh, that's a lot of bacteria. I was like, maybe that's the problem.
Oh,
maybe.
So you can determine how much bacteria might be in the canal based on
a simple swab.
And that in itself could also, because I know they do it sometimes, they'll look at the bacteria by way of TCI.
Sure.
But the cytology exam tells you why the female might be.
Yeah. And
are there seasons where females might be have more bacteria than others? And I'm only asking because we had a female named Maya, and that bitch drove me crazy. But she could only get pregnant in the wintertime.
Really?
If it was cold, almost guaranteed. And I drove all the way to Jefferson City.
Yeah.
And so you go, okay, look, she didn't take when they shipped semen. Semen was pretty good. It worked. But when we drove there, drove back, that's 16 hours total. 8 there and 8 back, and 9 and some change. She took and got pregnant both times.
Dang it.
Exactly, man. Now, the second time, I had the dog that was here, so we had to worry about it. But she didn't get pregnant the first time using the dog in the summertime.
Yeah.
And it's every time, man. So is there like seasonal allergies in the vagina? What's going on here?
No, I think it's one of those, like in the summer, let's say, if we take ourselves into account, what's going on with our hormones? It is hot. Our body is doing everything to stay cool. It doesn't want to take on another single task.
Interesting.
So is that why? Versus in the winter, we're reserved and everything. It's cold outside. We can do more. Our body can take on more stress physically.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why.
No, and it's funny you say that because she's a dog. As I break down the American Bully for people at times, she definitely has more of the bulldog influence, which means, she fucking struggles to breathe. She gets overheated. I try to keep her as cool as possible, but no matter what happens, it just didn't work. And that could, what you're saying, stressful. What's so crazy is one of the breeders I know, he literally said, Trevor, you'd be surprised how much stress, something as simple as stress could impact a pregnancy and so many other things in a dog. Oh, yeah. And that could be even just move the dog's food bowl to a different location. Yep. So after you do the test and you get the numbers, is there for you, especially if you get kind of close to your breeders, do you ever give them assessments on females? Like, I don't know if I would use this female if I were you. And what are those things that you would look for to help them identify, like, I don't think this would be a good breeding dog for you, even if they're like, man, well, I got a breeder to get my money or something.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact situation. I was doing a TCI 2-ish years ago. Go in with the camera, and something wasn't right. I called over another doctor, and I was like, what's going on? I was like, all right, maybe. I was like, hey, have you ever bred the dog? We've tried. I'm like, all right, tried, so didn't get pregnant. Like, no. I was like, all right. I was like, could it be a hymen? Maybe. I was like, But what happened is as we were advancing, it almost looked like there was two canals that split. We went down one. I'm like, well, that didn't go nowhere. We backed out. We went down the other. I was like, well, that ain't. I was like, where's the cervix? So I told them right then. I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I was like, you've never gotten her bred. I think they had tried twice, so this would have been their third attempt. Yeah. I was like, I don't know that she'll ever get bred. And I was like, I just cut your loss. Put her in a pet home. I was like, if you're trying to recoup your money, you never will.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen. I was like, something's wrong. I was like, I can't tell you. I don't know. I was like, none of us in this building had ever seen this before.
That's crazy. It's weird. So her canal led to no cervix.
I think there had to have been one. We just didn't know where it was. we couldn't find it.
That's great. Now, and mind you, people, when he's saying that, there's a camera at the end of that TCI machine. I've visibly used. If you've watched this channel, you've seen us record the doctors going right to this. It's like a wall. It's like a dark spot. But they go do some traveling. It's a long tube, and then boom,
light source on it.
Light source on, so you're not going in the dark. And you go. We got to a place where it's just like a black hole. That means we couldn't get to the surface. And there have been doctors who were candid with me because the bigger dogs sometimes have curvature, so they go. We're not going. We're not going to be able to get right to the surface. I say, well, look, I need you to cut some of that price because I paid to get to the surface.
It's like I've done some hound dogs. I think I've reached one cervix.
In a hound dog?
On a big hound dog. They're so big. Yeah. They're soggy dogs. Is that uterus just truly falling over the edge? Like, is that cervix pulled down?
Yeah.
I was like, I could never reach it.
Because that thing's straight.
Yep.
Why don't they make a tube that kind of forms and stuff?
I think they put some slight degree on it. I think I've seen upwards of 30 degrees.
Interesting.
But that's from like the camera source to the rod. But because it's supposed to be a straight shot, relatively.
It's supposed to be, yeah. But that's the thing too. From a breeding standpoint, you don't learn about how many ways in which it moves, functions, and shifts until you get to a vet. And I know some of those TCIs alone can get upwards of $200+ on average.
Easily.
So when you're paying $200 to increase the chances, and then if you're just learning about progesterone tests and you're in the 20s now, you almost have to do a TCI. And
it's not a surgical.
There you go. Which can get even more pricey.
Oh, yeah.
And cause more stress. But you're dropping the semen literally right into on the eggs, basically, at that point.
Yep. Halfway up each uterine horn is where I put them if I'm doing a surgical.
There you go.
Try to meet the egg right where it is.
So if we had to simplify, what is the right time to breed, or when is the right time to breed a female? We already discussed not before 2 if you can help it, which you should be able to help it. And then what are some other things that they might want to be mindful of?
Good nutrition.
Oh man,
goes such a long way.
Jesus
you got
Christ.
good age, good nutrition, good conformation. You theoretically have a good animal to breed. It's like in the horse world, everybody gets wrapped up about papers. It's like your AKC papers, or in the horse world, AQHA papers, or...
So the horses can be AKC registered?
No, they're AQHA, but I just relating it back to dogs. But just because you're bred right in terms of your lineage, don't mean it's a good animal.
There you go, people. That's people have asked me times, hey man, what about the paperwork? I'm like, look, the best dog I ever had was $150, man. And she was with my Nana, who was in her 80s. She went to live with an Indian family from Calcutta. She was a pit bull. She died with them at 14. She outlived all of her kids. Hell, she just died last year. She didn't outlive some of these bullies I got. And she's just a chocolate, beautiful pit bull that had nothing but good heart. And I think people had good intent, and they were trying.
Yeah.
And they're very upfront and honest too, which is hard to come by with some of these breeders and breeds in general. So paperwork, does that frustrate you then when they get, because look, let's say they bring you this Grand Champ sire, purple ribbon, or super horse or cow, and the thing can't produce, you go, it looked like you bought a black cat that didn't have a fuse on it.
Luckily, I'm one of those, I'm not going to ask, so don't tell. Don't ask, don't tell. I don't ask. Honestly, I don't care how much the semen cost. I don't care how much your dog cost. It's none of my business. Let me do the medicine side of it. Yeah. Let's see if we can make it work. I don't care if you spend $100,000 on the semen. Yeah. That's your business. That's not mine.
Shit.
It's like, I know a lot of these bulldog, like the stud fees, are $10,000 to $60,000. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm not making no money off of it.
At all. Right. Your job is to protect and keep the dog safe and focus on
that's y'all's business. That ain't mine.
So do they ever express any of that frustration with you when it's not working?
100%.
That was your fault that the dog can't get pregnant because the breeder had no clue what it was. And mind you, and I don't know if this is like a thing yet, so I'm asking this because it came to my head. Is it plausible that if a mother had issues getting pregnant, that she passes it along to her children?
Good question. I don't know if I have an answer.
I couldn't find the science.
I would assume there is some sort of gene in there, but at the same time, were all the conditions right for her to get pregnant? It's like, if we relate it back to humans, there are plenty of women out there that struggle with infertility.
Absolutely.
Is it their fault? Was it their mother's fault? If they have a kid, will their child go through the same thing? I think that would be where the answer lies, and I don't know if there is an answer.
Yeah.
It's so individually based. Like, did you go through something? Did you have cancer as a kid? That's going to screw up a lot of things. Doesn't mean you're going to suffer there, but what did you go through as a kid to potentially mess with your body later on down the road?
Yeah. That is interesting, man. So the right time, people, I think, kind of goes back to even making sure you pick the right person to buy a dog from if you want to breed. And then husbandry is everything, it sounds like.
Everything.
And that's 2 years of effort and work, praying that things don't go wrong. Because anything's possible, right?
Yep.
And we did an episode even on pyometry already. And that's like the killer of all hopes and dreams at times. And I've got to ask this, and I know you're not a breeder. So, guys, we're talking to him from a vet standpoint. Keep that in mind. He does not breed dogs. He helps you breed and do the best he can from a medical side, as he said. But is there a contribute? Like, what's the biggest contribution a male provides to a breeding? Then I'm asking because if you take a 150-pound male to a 65-pound female, the dogs ain't gonna be 150. It's just not gonna happen. No. They take on more of the mother's characteristics of stature, which is why, how do you get a standard schnauzer? You take a 19-inch dog to a 19-inch dog. It's got the same features, 3 colors. You get the same
Makes
dog
about
over.
a 19-inch dog.
That's it. But with we've got the bully people, and I've got to speak to that because they'll take a 23-inch dog to a, hey, can I take it to this 17-inch dog? And, one dog's 140 and one dog's 70 pounds. And they want to know why the dog's got high rears, messed up elbows, back problems, CCL disease. Yep. And they didn't turn out that way. It's like you took an ogre to, a very small, a little person, I think is the right word to use now.
Yeah, that's the PC word.
I know you can't say the other word anymore, I don't think. I'm going to say it.
Just in wrestling.
But you go, how much does a male contribute to a breeding? Do you know? And I don't either.
Percentage-wise, I don't. I think it contributes, obviously, 50% of the genetics.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you are going from 70-pound female, 140-pound male. You're probably going to get dogs that are 60 to 80, maybe 90 pounds, full grown.
Yeah.
Because they are going to take some size from him, obviously, because he's big.
Yeah.
But does that affect their structure and everything? Maybe. If he ain't perfect and she ain't perfect, it's going to affect something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And it's interesting you say that, because when you look at the basic fundamentals of genetics and chromosomes, fact is there is a 50-50 share. Challenge is you often see more contribution, and they trace it back through wolves, even to the mitochondria of females. They can trace it back lineage-wise, like, oh, they all had this mom, grandma, whatever the case would be, and they have these characters, but they have not been able to find the science on where the male's influence comes in the cells, to be clear.
Right.
That's what's interesting to me, because so when people get into that, man, I paid 20 bands for this semen. I'm go, for what? The good, if not great breeders, tell you they only care about the females.
Yeah.
They are the biggest value add. And even in my opinion, I'm like, a good dog is a good dog, but I need a good bitch. I need a good bitch 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in my own breedings. Like, yep, fucking mom. I knew she was going to be the difference, man. Well, guys, 2 years is the prime time for those that are having trouble getting dogs pregnant. Sounds like a cytology would be important, especially if you... I've never even considered it, and I didn't even think about it from that standpoint. I don't know if I asked the vets a couple times, because when Maya didn't get pregnant, I said, let's do a cytology on her. But I don't remember them informing me. And mind you, this is all I do is want education, So learning that a cytology studies the epithelial, and then based on the nuclei, you could determine how much bacteria is in there, it sounds like.
Well, the bacteria is going to live outside. So you got the epithelial.
Yeah.
And then the nucleus lives inside that epithelial cell.
Oh.
So then it's when those are getting smaller, going away, looking like the epithelial cells looking like a frosted flake, then we're getting into that breeding time. Now the bacteria is going to be live all around it. Is it a little ball? Is it a little rod, or coxine rods that we need to treat? Maybe, maybe not.
And what is the treatment for a female who has
of course, antibiotics.
Okay, of course, antibiotics to clear up that canal. Yeah. Okay, and one of the things they used to do back in the day, especially if they had concerns for pyometria, is some would run a light round of cephalexin during her bleeding time, to prevent pyometria per se,
right? And
whatever else is going on. Interesting, man.
I don't think it works.
Hey, there you go. Truth is, that's all that matters.
Just because it happens 2 months after the fact.
Does it?
Yeah.
So pyometria comes after a bleeding a lot of times.
Way after.
So to be clear, if your dog is bleeding 99.9% of the time, it never gets pyometria when actually in estrus.
Right. And we'd have to break down the whole estrus cycle, and we could do that on another episode.
Yeah, there you go.
Like you've got your proestrus, estrus, diestrus, or pregnant. If they're in diestrus, that's when they're susceptible to the pyos.
Look, people, this is good, because we're going to do some breedings this year. We'll definitely be here with Tadlock doing them. We're going to be able to bring you real life education. What I love even about the subtlety in this particular place is everywhere I've went, there's a frantic, boo, gotta get you in now, get it, boo, boo, boo. And you never really get to deep dive, and you're like, hey, they got more dogs, we got to get out of here. But they've always been fair in answering most of my questions, but I never really got to let's take a look at my dog. I want you to tell the whole truth. nothing but the truth. What are some issues? What do you see? What do you think? What is a problem? And this stuff can help somebody else. Yeah. I did a video last night on why the American Bully is so hard to breed. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you hated it. Either way it goes, the fucking truth. Take care of your dogs.